Tim Donnelly, 3 to 6 on 99.9 The Fan.
Happy New Year to all cigar smokers of the Triangle. This is Stevie from the Cigar Box in Cary, and I'm going to start the new year off with a bang. This is the news that you have all been waiting for in what seems like forever. Are you sitting? The Cigar Box Lounge is complete and ready to rock and roll. If that's not enough, then brace yourself for this. The bar is open and ready to serve. That's right, we now are approved to serve alcohol, beer, wine, and anything that comes in a bottle and is legal. This now makes the Cigar Box the only major cigar lounge in the Triangle with the largest and most complete line of cigars as well as spirits. If this doesn't get you excited, imagine how I feel. When I started this project, I had hair and 2 good knees. Now I'm bald with 2 knee replacements. If you haven't been to the Cigar Box yet, we are at the corner of High House and 55 in Cary. If you have been to the Cigar Box, then drive on over, and if I'm there, say you heard this ad and I just may buy you a drink. So get your butts on down and always remember the Cigar Box, where the customer comes first.
Would you know what to do in a poison emergency? Would you know whom to call? Well, the answer is Poison Help. 1-800-222-1222. Poison Help is a 24/7 government hotline staffed by poison experts. It's free to call and available in over 100 languages. Every second counts in a poison emergency. Don't waste it wondering who to call. Save Poison Help in your phone today. 1-800-222-1222.
The law offices of Gregory and R. Williams, PLLC, is here to serve your legal needs in the areas of personal injury, estate planning, civil litigation, and traffic matters. Whether you were injured through no fault of your own in an auto accident, or if you need to complete or update your will, your power of attorney, living will, or trust, or if you're injured through breach of contract, contact GRW Law, where we protect the injured and counsel the uninsured. You can reach us at 919-282-4696, or you can visit us on the web at grw-law.com.
To some, a baby's babbling doesn't mean much, but it does. Especially if there's no babbling at all. Little to no babbling by 12 months or later is just one of the possible signs of autism in children. Learn more at autismspeaks.org. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
This hour of Buzz Sports Radio is powered by Ritchie Law Firm, injury lawyers. Ritchie Law is on top of it. Go to ritchielaw.com.
That's ritchielaw.com.
Igloo.com.
Your home for Duke football. WCMC HD2, HD3 Holly Springs, WDNC AM Durham, and WCLY AM Raleigh. The Buzz.
This is Unsportsmanlike on ESPN Radio and on ESPNU.
So Rob Manfred, the commissioner of Major League Baseball, met with the media at spring training and discussed, I don't know if anyone would argue, what has become the biggest story in baseball, which are the LA Dodgers, the defending champs, adding all the money to their payroll, Ohtani coming back and hopefully being healthy enough to pitch this year, and just being that team that everyone focuses on. And here is what Rob Manfred had to say about the LA Dodgers.
The Dodgers have gone out and done everything possible, always within the rules that currently exist, to put the best possible team on the field, and I think that's a great thing for the game. That type of competitive spirit is what people want to see. By the same token, I said this at the owners' meetings, I'll say it again. It's clear that we have fans in some markets that are concerned about the ability of the team in their market to compete with the financial resources of the Dodgers. And I think if we've been consistent on one point, it is we try to listen to our fans on topics like this. And I have heard people on this, believe me. I get a lot of emails about it.
Smalls, you have a disdain for the Dodgers. I'll let you obviously explain why. But based on what Rob Manfred said, and the rules of the sport, how is he not right about everything he's saying? And why would that be? And I know he's the commissioner, his fault when many of the ownership groups have been in play for a long period of time. The Players Association, as CC and I have pointed out many of times in our debates with baseball here, are slow to agree to a lot of the stuff that actually has made the sport better. everything, at least in my opinion, that Manfred said is fair. The rules of the sport allow the LA Dodgers to spend as much money as they want, as long as they're willing to pay the luxury tax penalties, which they do.
Yeah, I want to clarify. I don't hate the Dodgers because of what they're doing. I hate the mechanism that allows the Dodgers to do what they're doing. Rob Manfred is right in saying that they're playing by the rules and they are doing whatever they can do in order to field the most competitive club that they have. And they are spending a lot of money. The problem is that not every club in baseball has those figures and takes that same approach. And that's my concern, is that we're seeing a vast competitive disparity developed within Major League Baseball. And I am hoping that it doesn't translate into less interest and maybe more apathy from fans who feel like, well, my organization isn't spending money. We don't have any stars. We're never going to be able to compete with the likes of the Mets or the Dodgers. Why even pay attention? I just hope that that defeatist attitude doesn't set into a sport that we already have all of these conversations surrounding fan interest and where they are in the overall sports ecosystem.
Well, I'm hoping that that frustration with the league being top heavy when it comes to spending leads to fans in these smaller market teams putting more pressure on those franchises to keep up with the Joneses. Because quite literally, with the emergence of venture capital and those financial institutions wanting to be more involved in investing in sports teams, these small market teams can literally sell shares of the team to these venture capital firms to get an infusion of cash to be able to go out and spend and compete for the biggest free agents in the sport. Because right now, there is no excuse for any of these franchises, whether you're in a big market or a small market, not to spend and try to be competitive. Every team in Major League Baseball is valued at $1 billion or more. Over half the league, you're talking about the teams being valued at more than $2 million. That's according to Forbes last year. Also, 2024, Major League Baseball had $12.1 billion in total revenue. There is literally no excuse for all of these small market teams not to be able to spend with the big boys. The only question or the only issue has been their willingness to do so, knowing that they're still profitable even when they don't spend because of the regional and national television deals. So on the whole, I think Rob Manfred has got it right. And all of these owners in these small market teams that have been using this excuse of not being able to keep up with the cash spend for these big market teams, it's just that. It's an excuse so you can pocket more of the coin and not invest it back into your club.
But that's where I guess my issue is with all of this, is that we are expecting
R.J. Davis. You can think you do a good job against R.J. Davis, but you kind of don't, no matter how hard all that goes. But today it's not exactly the most favorable of matchups when it comes to State and North Carolina. Just State is craving a win. They need it bad here. They need it bad. But they find themselves nearly double-digit underdogs in this one, and clearly the underdog when it comes to the money line, when it comes to those of you who are interested in sports betting. Minus 600, the Heels right now. That's barely a bet, Graham.
I know. That's pretty much essentially a pick'em game, if you really want to call it that.
Over-under 146.5. But Carolina favored to win. Now, Hubert Davis also being probed on his thoughts about the evolution of NC State since they first met.
The first thing that jumps out is, just defensively, their athleticism and their pressure. In our first matchup, our turnovers and our shot selection was not very good at all, especially in transition. They made us run our offense real far out. We've got to do a better job taking care of the basketball, got to do a better job at our shot selection, not letting their pressure defensively dictate and decide our pace and how efficient we are on the offensive end. But, it's a team that can score at all three levels. And, you just know when you play NC State, whether it's in Raleigh or here in Chapel Hill, both teams are going to be playing at a high level, and it'll be a competitive, fun game to play in.
So there's Hubert Davis there, North Carolina head coach. Paul Ihander here, Graham Hill there, very close to me today as we try a little bit something new here on Next Up here on 99.9 The Fan. But I'm struggling with that because is that healthy respect from Hubert Davis for NC State, or is he just trying to understand, or he's already rationalized in his head that this is a rivalry game? And if I don't give them that respect in terms of how well they play defense and how well they're able to pressure us from time to time, that this game could get away from them. As you said, it's a dagger game, right? For Carolina, a lot of things are riding on them continuing to win.
I think that's head coach Hubert Davis recognizing, despite the all-time series lead between North Carolina and NC State, despite beating NC State earlier this season in Raleigh, even though you got out of there by the skin of your teeth, North Carolina, yes, they're at home tonight, but does it really feel like they have that much of an advantage? And I know people are looking at me like I have three eyes when you look at NC State's record, second from dead last in the ACC. But this just feels like that NC State, if they're able to put together a manageable performance, I'm not talking 39% shooting. That's not going to get it done against North Carolina. That kind of performance can get it done against Boston College.
That's where they've been living, too, is in that 30% range for shooting.
But North Carolina has been just as inconsistent this year as NC State at times.
Okay.
I don't know if North Carolina, yes, they're coming off that win against Syracuse, but it just feels like they're not the monster. They're not the dominant program like they've been in past years entering this game tonight. And I think that's Hubert Davis realizing that, hey, like we're lucky that we got that, not lucky, but we're just happy to take that win on the road against Syracuse. We only beat State by 2 points last year. And yeah, you could also say that kind of started the avalanche effect for NC State, but it just doesn't feel like North Carolina is that heavy. What was the line again for tonight's game?
9.5.
There you go.
9.5.
So I think that's Hubert Davis recognizing that they're in just as much danger of losing this game as NC State is tonight.
That's troublesome. That's troublesome for both teams. But an understanding, though, that you are preparing your team to wage probably the most serious battle that they're going to have this season. And I don't believe that's an understatement whatsoever. Based on where these two teams are, where they sit, one team fighting to stay above water, like this is fully treading water for the Wolfpack. And for Carolina, really trying to make sure that they can be included in the conversation and not find themselves in one of those middling battles with a Georgia Tech team, let's say in the opening on the Wednesday of the tournament, or Florida State, who seems to have been rejuvenated here in the last few weeks. You look at this ACC and you go down year, right? Across the board. And that's what you've been piped in through the overhead speakers at the grocery store. ACC's in a down year. Only 4 teams will make the tournament. Maybe only 3. Duke is in a 1 seed. And all that stuff trickles down to the, yes, Carolina's not the team that it was last year. But Carolina's not controlling the same amount of players and the same amount of talent that was on the floor last year. They had a big man in the middle. Armando Bacot was a stud, the epitome of a college low-post player, a guy who could get you the rebounds, extend himself with force, and because of the time that he spent at Carolina, was someone that they could lean on and someone that had the respect from other players. Now, others would challenge him, the Kyle Filipowskis of the world, Efton Reeds, things like that. But there was still that healthy respect. And so Carolina rolling into this one, and we'll get into it with Tommy Ashley here of Inside Carolina here in about 5-7 minutes or so, has itself an internal battle just to win basketball games with State, Virginia, Florida State, Miami, Virginia Tech. It's in the down year of the ACC. So is the ACC dragging the expectations down of the rest of these teams, including Carolina? It'll be interesting to say, but I hope we actually do get to play tonight. That's the one other big question mark around it. It's been thrown out there a little bit. I don't want to blast it up too much because it's pretty easy, to be honest, to hitch up a plow before a bus and have them plow the road to Chapel Hill and then plow the road back here. But, you got to get people there, and hopefully a decision will be made. What we don't want to have to do throughout this program and throughout the entire day is to go, well, they haven't made a decision yet. Are they going to play the game or they're not going to play the game? They haven't made a decision yet.
It's a WRL weather alert day.
Right. Is it a yes or no? Let's be honest. We are just looking for a simple yes or a simple no for this basketball game. But for this dagger game between State and Carolina, this is about as real as it's going to get between these two teams. It is a very desirable win for Carolina because, and again, in rivalry, you can toss out the records, and you get to cement the year on your upstart partner, dance partner tonight. And for the Wolfpack, for them to lean into it, and we'll talk with Wolfpack play-by-play announcer Matt Chazanow about this same game about 9:30-ish or so. For them, it's about staying above water and trying to keep pace with what's around them. Boston College winning last night did not help. They don't need Boston College jumping them in the standings. 16th is bad enough, but sliding down one more spot makes it that much harder to get in. The good news is the teams ahead of them, at least for now, seem to be sliding down to them in Syracuse and Cal and Notre Dame.
It's just ironic that both teams come into this game tonight in a situation of where they can't control their own destiny based off how many times they let games get away from them. It's just on two larger scales. For NC State, they got to, even if they win tonight, they now have to rely on 15 other teams ahead of them to some chips to fall in their favor just to get
14 other teams. Let's be honest, Duke's not going to fall that far.
Exactly, just to get into the ACC tournament. Whereas North Carolina, if they win tonight, that's great, but you have to rely on 65 other teams, 66, 67, based on what you're looking at the last four teams in. That's why this game has so much meaning, and there's so much at stake as far as if you lose tonight, if you're the losing team that leaves Carolina or leaves the Dean Dome tonight, essentially your season's over because both teams are at a point where they cannot afford any more losses.
Yeah, the season's over in terms of expectation.
So I know this matchup is not as sexy or as appealing as it once was about a month ago when they first came to Raleigh because there was still so much optimism. So much was still at stake for both teams. And there still is. But the stakes have been risen so much where you can't afford a loss anymore.
Yeah, it's a harder sell.
So who wants to ruin – so which team wants to ruin their rival's season tonight by beating them tonight in Chapel Hill?
So when they play tonight, you can listen to the game because you won't be going anywhere, to be honest, unless you might be stuck still having to deliver pizza tonight or whatever it is. But if you are, our family station, Mix 101.5, will have the call. Tip off at 7, pregame at 6 o'clock. All right, friends, Paul Ihander here for FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just beginning on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. FanDuel is your home for NBA live betting. But this week, FanDuel is also your home for the Four Nations Face-Off title game. Team Canada, Team USA. And on Thursday, you're going to get a profit boost token, a 25% profit boost token for your bets on Canada versus USA, round number 2 tomorrow night. And you know what? I do like some points, right? I do like some points from a guy like Jack Eichel. You only need one, right? If you want to do a same-game parlay, maybe it's a Jack Eichel point and a Nathan McKinnon point. And because of all the scoring that we have seen during this tournament, how about over the number? Right now, the line is set at 5.5. But however you want to play, now is the perfect time to join. New FanDuel customers get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/Paul and join today. That's FanDuel.com/Paul for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. 21 plus and present in North Carolina. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 877-718-5543 or visit morethanagame.nc.gov. All right, coming up next, we're going to continue our State Carolina talk as we head into this Daggers game. Heels up first. Tommy Ashley of Inside Carolina joins us next up on 99.9 The Fan.
I'm Graham Hill with 3 things you need to know right now from 99.9 The Fan. The North Carolina Tar Heels will try to complete a regular season sweep against the NC State Wolfpack, which has lost 9 of its last 10 games tonight at the Dean Dome. You can hear play-by-play coverage on our family station, Mix 101.5, with pregame coverage beginning at 6 and tip-off scheduled for 7. The Carolina Panthers re-signed quarterback Andy Dalton to a 2-year deal, the team announced on its website yesterday. Dalton, who is 37, was due to become an unrestricted free agent in March. ESPN's Adam Schefter reported that the deal includes $6 million guaranteed and has a max value of $10 million, according to an unnamed source. The Canes Corner radio show featuring Jackson Blake, scheduled for tonight, has been postponed due to the inclement weather expected in the area. A new date for the show, which airs live from the local, will be determined at a later date. Find these stories and more on WRLSportsFan.com. Next up, Tommy Ashley of Inside Carolina.
Hey-yo. This is such a mellow song. Like, this is a surfing song.
But it's named Snow.
Right. If you ever
Which kinda
watch,
doesn't make sense.
No, I was just going to say, if you've ever seen a Warren Miller snowboarder ski movie, which I recommend you all see at least once because they're pretty cool, this is the kind of song that's always in the earbuds when you're going down the hill and carving. Like, this has just got that flow. It has that flow. Perfect for extreme sports and like jumping into fresh powder and stuff. Paul Ihander here with you. Graham Hill, as always, with the update. Appreciate that. Next up here on 99.9 The Fan. Thanks for hanging out with us on this Wednesday morning. And joining us on the Hisha Automotive Group hotline as we jump right into it, as we talk about State and Carolina, is Tommy Ashley, Inside Carolina, good friend of the program. Tommy, as we kick things off here, give us an update. What are you hearing about the status of tonight's game? I hear you have some information for us.
Yeah, I was going to say it's all systems go as far as I've heard, unless anything's changed in the last 30, 45 minutes. NC State supposedly in town last night. So game officials get there, building officials get there, and the players get there. They're playing. So it could be a mess, but, hey, it's not the first time they've played in bad weather up there at Smith Center.
Truth.
Tommy Ashley of Inside Carolina joined us this morning on Next Up alongside Paul Ihander. I'm Graham Hill. And Tommy, when you look back at UNC's 88-82 road win against Syracuse this past Saturday, how did you feel like the Tar Heels handled Syracuse zone defense, and what adjustments did you see Hubert Davis and his staff make throughout the game to secure the win?
I think one of the biggest things you saw is Carolina played more of a quote-unquote traditional Carolina lineup with 2 bigs, and, of course, Jalen Withers used his athleticism and made some shots around the rim and then also hit some threes. So for me, that was the biggest thing. Syracuse isn't their traditional, zone for 40 minutes type defense, but they did play it some, and Carolina was able to hit some shots over the top. But I think the biggest difference is getting the small lineup off the court as much as possible for Hubert Davis. I mean, it's tough when you play 4 little guys, and they can be 4 good guys, but I've said before on the show, good big guys beat good little guys most of the time, and Carolina was able to go big and handle Syracuse.
Yeah, Tommy, they let Eddie Lampkin eat, so to speak, and he tried to keep Syracuse in that basketball game. I think what I noticed about that game, too, watching it and then comparing it to a lot of the other action prior to that, as we've seen the ups and downs of this Heels team, it was 88. It was 88 on a non-overtime kind of game against a conference opponent to which it looked like, and you just mentioned it, them going back to that traditional Carolina looked like that traditional Carolina team that I think people had hoped for since day one.
Absolutely. I mean, you're right. Lampkin played well, and he got some baskets, but with the extra size, they were able to guard better, and they were able to have a little bit of transition. But the biggest thing, guys, is they hit shots. They hit 10-plus threes, and they just hadn't really done that all year. I think also when you had Withers being able to step out and make some shots, it opened it up a little bit. And so I think that's something we'll see going forward. Of course, Hubert Davis is going to play the matchup game more than most in college, and definitely more than Carolina used to play. It used to be, we're going to do what we do, and then you adjust. Hubert's more of an adjuster on there. So the bottom line is this team hits shots, then it's a completely different ball game for them. If they hit 35, 40% from their threes, then of course they're going to look so much better. And I think having Withers being able to make some of those certainly helped, and Jay Wash was able to step out a couple times too. Just traditional basketball works. still in the ACC, and Carolina was able to play it a little bit last week.
Tommy, you mentioned it just now. Obviously, a great game by Jalen Withers, who had 19 points in 24 minutes. But the big thing that impressed me the most was freshman Ian Jackson. It felt like reemerged for the Tar Heels this past Saturday against Syracuse. 23 points in 29 minutes. And NC State head coach Kevin Keatts even said, North Carolina just looks different as a team when Ian Jackson is able to knock down shots. How much of that do you agree with, and how much of an impact does he need to be for the Tar Heels tonight against the Wolfpack?
Oh yeah, I think he's got to be the guy. You know, everybody focused on R.J. Davis earlier in the season, and R.J. struggled, and there was nobody else to really step up consistently. And then Ian did it for 7 games or however many games he had, scoring 20 points or so. And then defenses adjusted and made him the key guy to guard, and you saw what happened there. But for Jackson, I think it's a confidence thing. I don't think he lacks confidence, but I think when he plays with more confidence, he's going to hit more shots. And what did he take against Syracuse? 10 threes? I mean, that's pretty incredible to see a freshman taking that many outside shots. But it's like I said earlier, it opens everything else up, and it changes the defense when other guys are making shots. And you can't key on the one guy or the two guys. And the difference between Ian and RJ is Ian's 4 inches taller, and he's got a lot more bounce. And he's I would say he's the only Carolina guy that can get his own shot without much help from somebody else consistently. And you're right, Graham. He's got to play well for North Carolina to be good, because it gives you a second option outside of R.J. Davis, and then it allows somebody like Elliot Cadeau and somebody like Steph Trimble to have some driving lanes that they don't have unless Jackson's playing well.
Tommy Ashley of Inside Carolina joined us this morning on Next Up. And Tommy, this is a little bit of an open-ended question for you, but obviously we know how close of a matchup it was in Raleigh the first go-around between these two teams. It came down to Jalen Washington blocking a game-winning attempt shot for the Wolfpack. But for North Carolina tonight, are they in just as much danger of losing this game as potentially NC State is, as far as the inconsistency we've seen from the Tar Heels this season as well?
Yeah. That is the $64,000 question for this group. Carolina's shown that they can lose to anybody. They've shown that they can play well with good teams. I think for NC State, I've watched them a decent amount, and they didn't have their big, if I'm not mistaken, in Raleigh. Huntley Hatfield did not play in Raleigh, so that'll change them a little bit. But NC State is not a good basketball team. Now, they've lost, 9 of 10, I think I heard you guys say. And if Carolina plays basketball, if they play as well as they did against Syracuse, they'll beat State handily. But we've seen that's not always the case. If you have Elliot Cadeau come in and get foul trouble and make stupid turnovers and stupid fouls, and it changes the game for North Carolina. And they've shown a propensity to go 4 for 20 from 3. You know, if that happens, NC State's got a chance. But I think if Carolina can just play consistent basketball, play the traditional big lineup, and keep NC State off the glass, then I think they'll be fine. But, yeah, neither team I would qualify as a good to above average team, and both can melt down with the best of them. But being in the Smith Center, potentially snowstorm game, rowdy crowd, if they let the students in, I think Carolina's got a much better shot of winning this one than NC State does. But, look, I've watched too much to know to put money on these kind of games, because it never works out for me.
So, Tommy, let's wrap up with this. So on Monday, Roy Williams, we all know who he is, came out on Infinity Sports Network with the Zach Gelb Show and gave Hubert Davis his blessing, knighted him, so to speak, understanding that there have been tough moments. And he says, quote, "I think we're going to make a run here. I would love for it to turn around 180 degrees so I could look at all those other suckers and tell them to shut up about whether Hubert Davis is the right man to lead this program." How much weight does that carry with the fan base?
Depends on which part of the fan base you talk to. Do you talk to the general quote unquote casual fan? Then they're going to eat that up, because everybody they love Roy. But if you talk to the hardcore, more of the hardcore base, the message board base, those type folks, then they think maybe Roy. Of course, he's got to support the guy that he wanted to see in the chair. I do find it interesting. And look, Roy Williams is one of the best to ever do it, and his opinion certainly matters. But I do find it interesting that these comments pop up now as the season's progressed. And it's kind of like it goes unsaid that Hubert's the guy, if they were winning basketball. But when Carolina starts losing and you're looking at prospects of missing the tournament again, I mean, yeah, everybody wants to see Hubert Davis succeed, and Roy Williams is at the top of that list. But, you also got to think, Roy built this program up from the ashes after Matt Doherty. Do you really want to watch it go back down towards that level if you can avoid it? And it makes it interesting. It's certainly not a unified fan base, I will say that.
Tommy Ashley, Inside Carolina, always valuable insight from you, friend. Great to check in with you. Enjoy tonight's game.
Yep. Always good to be with you guys. Everybody stay cool and stay safe on the roads if you're out.
All right. Tommy Ashley, Inside Carolina, joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline. Always good to check in with him. Remember, tonight's game is on our family station, Mix 101.5, 6 o'clock pregame, 7 o'clock tip. And we turn the page here now to the Wolfpack. Voice of NC State Sports, Matt Chazanow, joins us next up on 99.9 The Fan.
I'm Graham Hill with 3 things you need to know right now from 99.9 The Fan. North Carolina will try to complete a regular season sweep against NC State, which has lost 9 of its last 10 games tonight at the Dean Dome. You can hear play-by-play coverage on our family station, Mix 101.5, with pregame coverage begin at 6 and tip-off scheduled for 7. The Carolina Panthers re-signed quarterback Andy Dalton to a 2-year deal, the team announced on its website. Dalton, who is 37, was due to become an unrestricted free agent in March. ESPN's Adam Schefter reported that the deal includes $6 million guaranteed and has a max value of $10 million, according to an unnamed source. The Canes Corner radio show featuring Jackson Blake, scheduled for tonight, has been postponed due to the inclement weather expected in the area. A new date for the show, which airs live from the local, will be announced when determined. Find these stories and more on WRLSportsFan.com. Next up, NC State basketball play-by-play commentator Matt Chazanow.
You're as cold as ice. You're willing to sacrifice our love.
I've seen this live, by the way.
As have I.
Yeah, there you go. Was it a Coastal Credit Union, or was it a...
It was indeed at Coastal Credit Music Park. It's Walnut Creek to me still.
Walnut Creek? Yeah, I got you. Paul Ihander here. The other voice you hear is Graham Hill. Next up here on 99.9 The Fan. Appreciate all of you hanging out with us. We have been talking about State Carolina, which seems to be a go tonight in Chapel Hill. On the call on our family station, Mix 101.5, is our next guest. He is the voice of the Wolfpack, Matt Chazanow. Chaz, did you hook up a plow to the front of your vehicle to make sure you could get to Chapel Hill, or what's going on here?
I got my snowshoes already on in the house. I'm kind of practicing, and I'm just going to walk over there. I'm just going to head over, and then you don't need to worry about the roads, so it's all good.
Matt, if we're being completely honest, Tony Haynes, your counterpart, has lived in this area for quite a while. He's been through a lot of these snowstorms. I'm sure he's just going to be the one that's driving you guys over to Chapel Hill tonight, right?
That's right. Yeah, he's the veteran. I follow his lead on all things, and including driving through snow from his experience in Raleigh, North Carolina. That's exactly right. Yeah, having lived in the actual Arctic for the last decade, and I'll defer to Tony because he's the guy. You're not wrong.
Matt Chazanow, voice of the Wolfpack, join us this morning on Next Up alongside Paul Ihander. I'm Graham Hill. And Matt, NC State's 70-62 win comes after 9 straight losses, but how big of a win was this for NC State, both mentally and standings-wise?
I think it was massive. I think the most important part of the win was a validation of process. I think one of the great frustrations over that 9-game skid was they felt a lot of times like they were so close that they were sensing they were doing the right things to prepare, and they just couldn't finish the job. They've been up in 12 of their 14 ACC games in the second half, and in some instances late. They were up by a point against Cal, for instance, at home, and Golden Bears won the game. They've just been a lot of tight ball games, and very few have gone their way. They beat Florida State, they beat Notre Dame, and then they've got a whole slew of really tight losses. If you're losing by 20 or 30, you're kind of going back to the drawing board, right? It's like, all right, let's go back from scratch and take a peek. That is not what this is. This team has had great effort. I think it's interesting that in the first meeting against North Carolina, the pack was really different. Like Trey Parker didn't play. North Carolina was different too, right? But we're at that point of the year where whatever your process has been brewing has probably led you to an evolved version of what you are. And so it's a different pack squad tonight with a stronger sense of identity, for better and worse. They know what they can do, and they know what they can't do at this point. I think they know how to accentuate those things.
Well, I think for the Pack and Kevin Keats, providing those opportunities for game winners, and if they go in, great, it's confidence builders. If they don't go in, still enough confidence to make things happen like that. I think one of the byproducts of not having your bigs play in games, whether it's illness or foul trouble or whatever it is you get to see those younger guys move forward. And I'm not trying to put a lot of shine on a lot of things because I understand the struggles of the season. But for Ismail Diouf to get the minutes that he is, and right now, and this is no knock on him, but the only comparison I can go is he is kind of like a raw Boris Diaw, right? He's got that floater kind of like easygoing game. When he gets to the basket, he doesn't dunk it. He lays it up. And then he shows off some range sometimes. What's it going to take for him to be consistent outside of just getting more minutes on the court?
He needs to get more physical. Yeah, Boris Diaw was a really nice player. We had those great years with the Spurs, and Boris Diaw, like Diaw, not a bad comp. I mean, in terms of just size, I think Diaw was a little heavier, a little bit bigger, but Diaw's a pick and pop 4-man. Maybe you could kind of squeeze him into a 5 spot, I think, and Diaw might be a little bit smaller. The thing about Diaw is Coach Keats wants him to get more physical. Like, I think Diaw really wants to be pick and pop 4. In this instance, it'd be a pick and pop 5, and now you're kind of 5 out and none in, right? Now, he has rebounded well at times and primarily on the defensive end. So I think in the end, Coach Keats defensively and then down low for a team that's really 4 perimeter guys with Dontrez Styles at the 4, right, who at times has rebounded well, but really is a perimeter, wants to shoot it, kind of like a big guard. I think Diaw probably gets more minutes and more trust and more consistency if he goes up against one of the bigger guys in the league and starts to really body with him. You just haven't seen a lot of physicality, and I know Coach Keats wants that out of him.
Join us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline is Matt Chazanow. He is the voice of the NC State Wolfpack. You can hear his call on our family station, Mix 101.5 tonight. Pregame coverage begins at 6. Matt, given how tight the first matchup was in Raleigh earlier this season, what adjustments do you expect head coach Kevin Keith to make to get a different result this time? Obviously, last time the goal was to lock down R.J. Davis, and NC State did a good job of that. It just allowed Ian Jackson to emerge in that game. What do they have to do differently in the second meeting?
Yeah, Jackson was really good. I mean, he had 5 threes. I felt like they were all from that same spot off that pick and roll action where they would pick and roll, drive in, defense collapses, and then Jackson was open on that right wing. They held the Tar Heels to 63. And so if you've got to only score 64 to win, that's really good. And so I think the issue for the Pack last game was, how do you go from 61? Where do you get 9 more points from? How do you get to 70? If this team scores 70 at the pace they play, at the rate they defend, 70 is a little higher. It's kind of like when Virginia would score 65 with their best teams under Tony Bennett. Well, if you're limiting the other team's possessions because your pace is so slow and you're so rigid in that structure, your 65 is more than other teams' 65 because you don't have as many opportunities to get above it. So when this team scores 70, it's really hard to beat them, right? And they're 8-2 now when they've scored 70, and they really should be 9-1 because of the game in Blacksburg. So I think in the end, Trey Parker scoring 10 points a game now is really a big deal. Last game against Boston College, Middlebrooks and Huntley Hatfield combined for 17. And right there, you've got 27 points that you kind of weren't getting for a lot of ACC play. And that's probably the path to 70, some version of that where Jaden Taylor and Dontrez Styles don't each have to score 20 for you to get to where you need to be. So, I think if you can have a similar defensive effort, like it's very unlikely you're going to hold all 3 or 4 of the really good North Carolina guards or shooters, like call them what you want to call them, but to single digits, right? It's just not going to happen. They did a great job against R.J. Davis. He only had 11, didn't do a ton. And Jackson benefited because the defense was collapsing, and he's a really nice player. He had a cold snap for about 5 games and then got hot against Syracuse, I think, when they won like 88-82 in Central New York. So, defensively, I don't think they changed much at all. I think they look at a similar blueprint. At the time, that was 20 points below what UNC was averaging. I think they've tried to figure out how to kind of creak and grind their way to 70 points, and if they do that, then maybe it'll be some like what they did against BC. They won 70-62. That's probably the blueprint. I think North Carolina's a little better than BC, but BC just dismantled Virginia Tech last night. Just pounded them in Chestnut Hill, which was kind of crazy to see.
Yeah, that was some ugly basketball for sure.
Yeah, that was grindy. That was grindy, like 11 points at halftime or something. I mean, it was. But I think it's a testament to there's kind of a big muddy middle of the league, and I think it's kind of whet the appetite for the Pack. Like they've been in so many games, the players and Coach Keats are like, man, you got to get into Charlotte. Get into that 14th spot, whatever it takes. Get into there, however you need to do it to go qualify for the ACC tournament and see what happens.
Now, root for some free falls and make sure that you control a little bit of that by winning the rest of the way out. Matt Chazanow, voice of the Wolfpack, catch his call tonight from Chapel Hill, a snowy Chapel Hill, a sleety Chapel Hill. I'm not sure what it's going to be, but at least you'll be warm indoors. Enjoy the game tonight, Chaz.
Appreciate you, boys. Thanks so much.
All right, voice of the Wolfpack, Matt Chazanow, joining us here next up here on 99.9 The Fan on the Heister Automotive Group hotline. It is the 1-year celebration of the start of this program. We have, yes, been on the air for 1 year, and our friends at Hardee's want to help you out and enjoy that. Celebrate with us. Text the keyword food, F-O-O-D, to 919-860-5326, and you'll have a chance to win a $25 Hardee's gift card. Brought to you by Hardee's. Indulge in their new menu of maple-flavored goodness with sweet maple biscuits served all day long in breakfast, now served until noon. Again, $25 Hardee's gift card up for grabs. Text the keyword food, 919-860-5326. Shout out to the crew at the Rollsville Hardee's. I'm always there, and they know me for my orders. Bring me the bag, baby. All right, coming up next, Andy's coming. Back to the Panthers. Next up on 99.9 The Fan.
I'm Graham Hill with 3 things you need to know right now from 99.9 The Fan. North Carolina will look to complete a regular season sweep against NC State, which has lost 9 of its last 10 games coming into tonight's matchup at the Dean Dome. You can listen to play-by-play coverage on our family station Mix 101.5, with pregame coverage begin at 6 o'clock and tip-off scheduled for 7 with Matt Chazanow and Tony Haynes of the Wolfpack Sports Network on the call. As of now, UNC is still scheduled to host NC State tonight at the Dean Dome for their second meeting of the season. The game is scheduled to tip off at 7 o'clock, but the Triangle remains on a winter storm watch with conditions expected throughout the day. Our local sports coverage will continue at noon with the Adam Gold Show, followed by The Drive with Dennis Cox, sitting in for Tim Donnelly. As always, you can stream both shows live by visiting 999 The Fan's YouTube channel. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and never miss a play. And as always, find these stories and more on WRLSportsFan.com.
I know this song. I'm waiting for the chorus now. There's no chorus.
Saint Motel?
Yeah, I was like, where is it? Is it coming or not?
You watched BoJack Horseman, didn't you, Paul Ihander?
Probably. Next up, here on 99.9 The Fan on this Wednesday morning, waiting for the snow to fall. Is it coming? I don't know. But you know who's coming back to the Carolina Panthers? One Mr. Andrew Dalton, who there is so much love for because he made this news happen yesterday. Word came out late in the day about Andy Dalton coming back to the Carolina Panthers on an extension. Remember, he's ready to go, but a 2-year extension for him in which it was like, is he staying? Is he going? But remember, he started last year. Started 5 of 6 games he played in, so proven backup, definitely a veteran. And he and Bryce Young apparently have a relationship that started out as, let's be honest, Woody and Buzz from Toy Story, and ended up at the end of Toy Story, where Woody and Buzz were getting along.
Wow.
Which is where you're like, Andy's coming. I mean, that's kind of what it was.
No, that's a perfect analogy. Hat tip to you.
So Dalton comes back, and so eliminates his name, kind of being one of those free agents where quarterback-needy teams were looking for qualified backups. And like you look at the case of the Las Vegas Raiders, who I call the Panthers West, if you compared them to Panthers of 2 seasons ago and not this past season, where they went with Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew and ended up with, I believe, Malik Willis at one point. They were just trying to find warm bodies to run out there, and it cost Antonio Pierce's job, even though I'm not sure he was ever qualified for that gig, to be fair. But it takes him out of the market and makes sure that the Panthers continually have continuity and make sure that Bryce Young still has the security blanket that he needs. But I'm not sure he needed it. And I remember, and I will call it out on myself, saying that perhaps Andy Dalton didn't need to be there, that it would free Bryce Young from that kind of looking over the shoulder kind of thing. And this move has not fully changed my mind about it because I still think he can look over his shoulder. But the belief that now there is an actual friendship between the two and that there is no friction, and whatever noise there was or body language that was being fired off by Dave Canales and the staff against Bryce Young is gone. And yesterday we mentioned towards the end of yesterday's program that Chuba Hubbard's bought in. He believes that things are moving in the right direction and that the Panthers should be contending for a lot of things. And I will say to you, what will stop the Panthers to move through the NFC South? It's not like the NFC South got any better, and I'm not worried about the drafts at all.
It always feels like it's just everybody's division to win. It's just a matter of who actually wants to go out there and win it. That's kind of the bit of the NFC South. But as it relates to Andy Dalton being re-signed by the Carolina Panthers, I like it just because, one, if you're going to see Andy Dalton out on the field, you hope it's not a situation like last year, where after week 2, Bryce Young gets benched, Andy Dalton goes out there, provides an offensive spark. In week 3 in that win against the Raiders, you hope it's, wash minutes time. We're up by 3 touchdowns late in the fourth quarter. Let's get him out there. And the camaraderie and the leadership and just the experience of being a veteran NFL quarterback like he is can go a long way for not just the quarterback room, but also the wide receiver room.
Can I pose a hypothetical to you?
Sure.
In what time we have remaining to us, and I believe fully that there are alternate timelines and alternate realities when it comes to sports. Certain things happen for certain reasons. The Carolina Hurricanes make trades a month before the trading deadline to make sure that the chemistry works, and if it doesn't, perhaps something else can happen, or there's an addition or a subtraction. The Carolina Panthers last year, starting quarterback got into a car wreck. Do you think we're seeing Andy Dalton make this move to sign again for 2 seasons if that car accident never happens and Bryce Young never gets back into a ball game? Because that's what was the catalyst. That was the catalyst that put Young back into that starting role. Whether or not he was ready for it, and because he came in some garbage minutes and then played against Denver, which was just an ugly football game. And then things started clicking.
That's
and
a great point.
We started seeing the smile and whatnot. But is this even a possibility?
Well, when you consider that Andy Dalton was getting ready to be an unrestricted free agent, and again, we don't know what could have happened if he had stayed the starting quarterback.
Right.
It could have been a 5-12 finish, just like it was this past season. But who's to say if he had continued to get the starting snaps, Andy Dalton might be signing with another franchise right now to be their starting quarterback.
Right. And competing for a 1 job. Just one of the interesting parts about this whole thing for the Carolina Panthers and how things set up and how there's this genuine feeling, and I don't think I'm stepping out of bounds here, and I got both feet in bounds. I don't think I'm stepping out of bounds by saying there's this genuine feeling among the front office and certainly among the fan base that the dread that comes with being a Panthers fan is gone. That I can go out and I can wear the Christian McCaffrey, jersey, not have the hate about it because I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about, trades that were made that, stripped the team or Brian Burns leaving for picks or whatever, or the riddled, injury-filled mash unit that was the Carolina Panthers defense in this offseason. That there's a firm belief in terms of the trust and the desirability of this being a place to play. Like last year, it was like, I want out. Brian Burns, I want out, right? I want out. I don't want to be here. This is not my thing. We can't come to an extension. No franchise tag. Don't want to do that. New regime, tired of this head coaching change, whatever it is. And then you look at a crew like Cleveland, where you have Myles Garrett asking out, and every day there is an article or someone opining about where can Myles Garrett go.
Or Aaron Rodgers begging to come back and play one more year for the New York Jets after he pretty much trashed him this past year.
Right, and the talk about where he's going to play and the ridiculous speculation that he'll be in Pittsburgh or whatever it is, that wouldn't surprise me. I'm like, that would shock the hell out of me.
T. Higgins, is he going to stay? Or are they going to franchise tag him?
The quiet might be the best part about the offseason of the Panthers.
No news is good news.
Right, the lack of noise, but then you get a signing like an Andy Dalton coming back, and you're like, that's a good move. It's not just a good move for the franchise, but it's a good move for him professionally, too. Because maybe he wasn't keyed in to be a one if he doesn't get into that car wreck.
Does it feel like the Panthers going into next season, and I can't believe I'm getting ready to say this out loud.
Say it out loud.
Or a competent workplace as far as the lack of noise you heard this past season from David Tepper?
It is a far cry from last season.
Credit to him for actually taking a step back, letting Dave Canales work through the kinks and the bolts, and now, even though it was a 5-12 finish, it just feels like there's more momentum going into next season than there has been in a while for this organization.
There is. There's undeniable momentum.
And that's a win itself.
And there's a lot of question marks, too. We're not going to color all this pretty and keep all the pinks and blues inside the car there. But they've got to get the draft right. There's no doubt about it. Morgan's first draft wasn't the most stellar.
Focus more on the defensive side of this year's draft.
Deal in defense, and then hopefully you can get some solid free agents. The splashy guys, you're probably not going to land. But you've got a master in cap space that you hired from the Kansas City Chiefs a year ago, and it seemed to have worked out because, you were never asking about, do I need to cut this guy? Do I need to let this guy go? All right, folks, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Enjoy the sports day, everybody, and as always, keep it on the shiny part.